My name is Elena. I'm 29 years old. And for as long as I can remember, I've carried two labels that were never really mine to own. Poor and useless. At least that's what my own family loved to remind me of. To them, I'm the girl who never flaunts the latest designer handbag, the sleekest car, the expensive anything. The one who arrives wearing last season's shoes and somehow acts like that's perfectly acceptable. What they don't know, what they never cared enough to ask, is that while they were mocking my so-called struggling lifestyle, I was silently funding theirs. The mortgage they love posting about online? My bank account made that happen. The car they can't stop photographing for social media? My name signed that loan. The electricity that never gets shut off, the medical bills that mysteriously vanish, the credit cards that somehow avoid collections. All me. Every single one. I let them talk. I let them sneer and whisper behind my back. I swallowed every insult, every cruel joke at my expense, because I convinced myself it was simpler to be the invisible support system than the person who shattered their comfortable illusion with reality. But this morning, something shifted. I opened my laptop, stared at my cluttered inbox, and suddenly understood something profound. The only reason they still see me as worthless is because I've been too terrified to reveal exactly how much power I actually hold. So I created one email, one subject line, a handful of screenshots, a detailed list of every transaction, and a recipient list long enough to make their hands shake. But before I show you exactly what I wrote in that message, and what happened the moment they realized who is truly financing their picture-perfect existence, please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. The first line I typed into that email was brutally simple. Here is a comprehensive list of everything you've claimed as yours that was actually paid for by me. No theatrics, no accusations, just that one sentence. Then I started documenting. Mortgage payments, date, amount, confirmation number, line after line, month after month, all highlighted in bright yellow. Under each entry, I added the source. Paid from my personal checking account ending in 3872. The house they constantly post about with captions like, hard work pays off. My hard work. My money. My sacrifice. Then came the vehicle. That gorgeous, shiny SUV my sister Emma absolutely adores photographing from every conceivable angle. I scrolled deep into my banking history and found it, the initial down payment they supposedly scraped together themselves. I remember that day at the dealership with painful clarity. I was 23, sitting on cheap synthetic leather in an ill-fitting blazer, while my mother and Emma charmed the salesperson with their practiced smiles. Every time he mentioned the co-borrower, they'd wave dismissively and say, "Oh, she's just helping with paperwork." Just paperwork, I repeated to myself like some kind of protective mantra. But when those monthly payments started draining my account dry, nobody called it just paperwork anymore. I screenshotted every single payment. Under each image, I wrote one devastating sentence. You drove this. I paid for it. It felt harsh. It also felt honest. With every item I added, memories attached themselves like shadows refusing to disappear. I was 20 years old, working my first real office job, taking public transportation because I couldn't afford my own car yet. My phone buzzed one afternoon, a text from Mom. Call immediately. Emergency. When I stepped into the hallway to call back, she was already crying. They're going to take the house, Elena. We're 3 months behind. I don't know what to do. I remember sliding down that wall, my heart absolutely pounding. I had this tiny emergency fund I'd built from declining coffee runs, sharing meals with friends, pretending I wasn't starving when I genuinely was. I transferred everything to her that same afternoon. No questions asked. No judgment passed. No lecture delivered. I told myself, it's fine. You're young. You'll rebuild. She posted a family photograph in front of that house a week later with the caption, "Grateful for our blessings." I wasn't mentioned anywhere. The bank transfer wasn't acknowledged. That was the first moment I truly understood something. My sacrifices weren't just invisible, they were convenient to forget. Have you ever helped someone who never even thanked you? Drop a comment and let me know. As I continued typing, the list grew ugly in its complete honesty. Utilities, electricity, gas, water. Every single time they bragged about never experiencing a service interruption, it was because I'd quietly intervened before the disconnection notice became a reality. I attached receipts from all those frantic calls. Elena, the power company made some mistake. We're about to get disconnected. Can you just cover it this once? Just this once. Repeated so frequently, it became meaningless background noise. Then came the medical bills. Those hurt the most, not just financially, but emotionally. Not because of the money itself, but because of the manipulation attached to each one. You know I'd do it for you, Mom would say. The difference? She'd say it. I'd actually do it. I attached confirmation emails from hospitals and doctors' offices. Under each one I wrote, covered in full by me so collections would never call you. I wasn't trying to humiliate them. I was documenting a history they had systematically erased. Between attachments, I caught myself hovering over the delete key, wondering if maybe I was being petty. Was I overreacting? Blowing things completely out of proportion? Then I remembered sitting at a family dinner when I was 25, absolutely exhausted from working overtime to catch up on my own rent because I'd bailed them out yet again. My mother lifted her wine glass and announced loudly, "We all know Elena isn't good with money. She's always too poor for nice things." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, but my stomach twisted so violently I couldn't finish eating. Nobody at that table knew I'd paid their overdue fees the previous week. Nobody asked why I was too poor. I was simply the punchline. So I scrolled back to the top of the email and added another line. You've spent years calling me irresponsible without ever questioning where the money you desperately needed actually came from. I decided to structure the entire email like an invoice, not because they owed me repayment. I'd already accepted that money was gone forever, but because I wanted them to comprehend the actual scale of what they'd taken for granted. I organized everything into categories: housing, transportation, emergencies, lifestyle. Under lifestyle, I listed every credit card payment I'd made when they accidentally maxed out cards on vacations, expensive dinners, lavish gifts they absolutely couldn't afford. I remembered one Christmas when Emma posted this elaborate photo spread of her presents with a caption, "When your family spoils you because you're worth it." What that carefully curated photo didn't show was me sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my own bank account deep in the red because I'd paid off the card they'd used for just a few last-minute gifts. I documented those payments too. Underneath I wrote, "You said you deserved to be spoiled. This is what it cost me." At one point, I stopped typing completely and just stared at the glowing screen. The document had grown long now, pages and pages of proof, numbers, receipts that didn't care about feelings or convenient excuses. My hands were trembling, but not from anger this time. From absolute clarity. I realized how long I'd been telling myself a story that kept me trapped. They don't understand, but they love me. This is what family does. Money is just money. But that wasn't true, was it? Because if money were truly just money, they wouldn't weaponize my lack of visible wealth against me every single time they wanted an easy laugh. If love was genuinely the foundation here, respect wouldn't be so completely conditional on appearances and performance. I sat back and breathed out slowly. Then, almost instinctively, I typed a question into the email right after my invoice-style breakdown. At what point is helping your family stop being love and start becoming self-destruction? I didn't know if they'd even read that line, but I desperately needed it there for myself. The final thing I added before closing the draft was a short paragraph, measured and emotionless. I'm not sharing this to hurt you. I'm sharing this because you've constructed a version of reality where I am poor, irresponsible, and worthless, while quietly depending on me to survive. Both cannot be true. You don't get to mock the person whose name appears on the payments, keeping your life afloat. I read the entire email from beginning to end, my chest tight, my jaw clenched. Then I did exactly what I'd always done at this stage. I hit save draft instead of send. Some old habits don't break easily. My cursor blinked on the screen like it was challenging me to be brave. I closed the laptop. I told myself I'd never actually send it. I had absolutely no idea that the next message I'd receive, an invitation to yet another one of their picture-perfect family dinners, would be the final straw that transformed this draft into the match that burned their entire facade to ashes. What would you do in this situation? Would you send it? Let me know in the comments, and don't miss part 2, where everything changes. Family dinner Saturday at my place. Don't be weird. Just come. The text from Emma appeared with a photo attached because she always does this. In the picture, her dining table was already half set, plates arranged on that long polished surface, crystal glasses catching light from a chandelier that looked like something from an interior design magazine. She absolutely loved staging these little previews, like trailers for the life she desperately wanted everyone to believe she lived. What she never seemed to grasp was that every perfectly angled shot of that table, every curated detail in the background, was a painful reminder to me of how many times my bank account had bled dry so that room could stay fully furnished and fully lit. I stared at her message for several long minutes. On any other week, I would have started constructing excuses in my head. I'm exhausted. I have a deadline approaching. I need to work late. I would choose peace over humiliation, stay home on my couch, and desperately hope that skipping one dinner meant avoiding another fresh round of jokes at my expense. But this time, something inside me absolutely refused to run. Instead of opening our chat again, I opened my email application. The draft sat there, waiting patiently. The subject line I'd written earlier felt almost too calm for the contents. What you call yours versus what was actually mine. I sat there watching the cursor blink. Then I deleted it completely and typed a new one. Read this before you say another word about my money. It felt harsher. It also felt honest. I started adding names to the recipient list, and I was extremely deliberate. First my mother, then Emma. After that, I added everyone else in the inner circle, the people who always seemed present when the jokes landed hardest. The aunts who loved whispering in corners about who was doing better than whom. The cousins who laughed a bit too enthusiastically whenever mom called me dramatic or irresponsible. The uncle who never missed an opportunity to ask if I'd finally figured out how to be a proper adult yet. Then I moved to the CC line. That's where the real pressure lived. I added the family friend mom was always desperate to impress, the one who thought she was the absolute image of strength and independence. I added a couple from church who ran the community group, where my mother loved positioning herself as this wise, stable matriarch who had everything figured out. Line by line, I built an audience for the truth, not to humiliate them for sport, but to make it completely impossible for them to twist the story back into something that made me the problem. When I finished, I didn't hit send. My finger hovered over that button, my chest impossibly tight. Then I remembered their faces at previous dinners, the way my mother would look around the table before delivering a punchline at my expense, like she was warming up a crowd for a comedy show. I didn't want another night like that. I wanted consequences. So I clicked the schedule option instead. I set it for the following morning at 9 o'clock. That felt right, late enough that everyone would be awake, early enough that they'd still be scrolling through their phones, sipping coffee, planning their day before realizing their entire version of reality had just been rewritten in their inbox. I sat back and looked at the small confirmation on my screen. Email scheduled. Then I closed the laptop and went to get ready for dinner. Would you schedule an email like this? Or would you confront them face to face? Tell me what you'd do. My hands moved on autopilot, selecting the same simple black dress I'd worn before. Clean, neat, comfortable, but nothing about it was flashy. The last time I'd worn it, Mom had laughed and called it recession chic in front of everyone. I remember pretending to laugh while silently calculating how much money I had left after covering one of her emergencies that week. I slipped the dress on anyway. I was completely done dressing for their approval. On the way to Emma's place, I watched the city pass by through the bus window. Cafes setting up for evening service. Couples heading out for dates. Lights flickering on in apartment windows. Somewhere in that same city, my money was sitting quietly in houses and cars that didn't have my name on them, propping up a life I was never allowed to fully belong to. I got off one stop earlier than usual, just to breathe before walking into the performance. When I reached her building, I could hear music before even stepping out of the elevator. Laughter and clinking glasses spilled down the hallway, the kind of noise that announces, everything is perfect here. Don't look too closely. I knocked. The door flew open. Elena, you're actually on time, Emma said, smiling wide and air-kissing my cheek. Miracles do happen. She smelled like expensive perfume. Her makeup was flawless, every hair perfectly in place. She took the dessert box from my hands and glanced down at it. Homemade again, she said, raising an eyebrow, making absolutely sure the people nearest the door could hear. Still can't afford catering, huh? A couple of people standing nearby laughed, not loudly, but enough. My mother appeared behind her, wine glass in hand, eyes already bright with that sharp energy she always got whenever there was an audience. There you are, she said, giving me a quick hug that felt more like posing for a photograph than actual affection. We were just saying we hoped you wouldn't cancel last minute because your bank account had a panic attack. More laughter around us. A few sympathetic looks that did absolutely nothing to soften the sting. I walked past them into the dining room, and it was exactly what I expected. The table from the photo, now fully set with candles, heavy cutlery, and plates that looked like they'd never seen a dishwasher. Bottles of wine lined up on the sideboard, labels turned outward deliberately. Little touches everywhere screaming, "We're doing well. We're not like those people who struggle." I took my seat near the middle of the table, close enough to be part of conversations, far enough from the head where my mother loved to sit and control everything. As people settled, phones came out. Photos were snapped. I watched one cousin angle her camera carefully to capture the table and Emma's outfit, but conveniently not the fact that she was behind on payments for the car parked outside. For a moment, I felt that old familiar urge to shrink, to make myself small and quiet and agreeable so the night would pass without too much damage. Then I remembered the email waiting on the server, set to send itself in less than 12 hours. I remembered the subject line, the receipts, the total. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel powerless in that room. They could still laugh. They could still take their shots. But the clock was ticking now, and none of them knew it. I let myself smile just a little as my mother raised her glass for the first toast. Tonight they saw the same Elena they always thought they understood. Tomorrow morning, when they opened their inbox, they would finally meet the version of me they'd been living off without ever acknowledging, the one who knew exactly what she was worth, down to the last cent. Dinner unfolded exactly as I expected. Soft background music. Beautiful plates. Emma's apartment dressed up like a showroom display. Everyone talked about work victories, upcoming trips, expensive new purchases they'd made. Mom sat at the head of the table with her wine glass, telling elaborate stories about how she'd always kept this family together, how she was the one who made sure nothing ever fell apart. People nodded, laughed, topped off her glass enthusiastically. I sat in the middle, the quiet one in a plain black dress, thinking about the email waiting in my outbox, scheduled for 9 tomorrow morning, absolutely full of proof that the story they loved telling wasn't the complete truth. For a while, I did what I always do, faded into the background. Emma bragged about her new spa membership and some trip she wanted to take to recharge. An aunt complimented the apartment and the car parked downstairs. Nobody mentioned late notices or calls from collection agencies. Nobody mentioned the nights they'd frantically called me because something was about to be shut off. To them, I was still the Elena who didn't travel, who wore the same clothes repeatedly, who always claimed she was watching her budget. That version of me made sense to them. It made their own choices look better by comparison. The first attack came exactly when I knew it would. Mom set her fork down deliberately and looked straight at me. "So, Elena," she said, stretching my name out. "How's life in that little apartment? Still pretending you enjoy living like that? Or are you finally ready to admit you just can't keep up?" Several people laughed. Emma smiled, waiting to join in. I took a breath, set my fork down, and met Mom's eyes directly. Normally, I would have shrugged it off, made a self-deprecating joke, moved on quickly. Tonight, I stayed silent. "My life is fine," I said evenly. "My rent is paid. My lights stay on. My fridge has food. I'm okay." Mom gave this small, disbelieving laugh. Oh, come on, she replied. Every time we invite you somewhere, you say you're broke. You bring homemade food instead of just ordering catering. You never join us on trips. At some point, you have to admit you're struggling. That's not a crime. Emma jumped in immediately. Exactly, she said. You work constantly, but what do you have to show for it? No vacations, no upgrades, nothing fun. That's not a strategy. That's just being poor. Poor. They absolutely loved that word when it came to me. They said it casually, but it landed heavy every single time. It used to cut straight through me. But after building that email and seeing my life documented in cold, hard numbers, it just sounded lazy. You really think I'm broke? I asked calmly. Mom shook her head, still smiling. Elena, she said. You're almost 30 and still living like a college student. You always talk about how tight things are. We're not attacking you, sweetheart. We worry about you. You could worry less and ask more, I said. None of you ever ask why I say no. You just decide I'm failing. Emma rolled her eyes dramatically. Here we go, she muttered. The mystery speech. If you're struggling, just say it. Don't try to make us feel bad because you made bad decisions. I looked at the necklace around her neck, the one I remembered from a bill I'd helped pay. I looked at the car keys on the table, attached to the vehicle I'd co-signed for. My throat tightened. I wasn't choking on shame this time, just on everything I could have said. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, I said quietly. I'm asking you to think. How do you think so many things in this family have stayed afloat? The table went silent. My uncle stopped mid-sentence. An aunt set her glass down carefully. Mom's smile faded slightly. What are you trying to say? She asked. That we can't handle our own lives? That we're using you? We're family, Elena. Families lean on each other. You're acting like you're some kind of hero. Leaning on each other means both sides get support, I replied. Has that ever really been true for me? No one answered. The silence sat between us, heavier than any joke they'd thrown at me. Emma finally spoke. So we've needed help sometimes, she said defensively. Who hasn't? That doesn't mean you get to act like we owe you everything. You don't owe me everything, I said. You owe me respect. You owe me not turning me into your punchline about how broke I am while I'm the one making sure certain bills get paid and certain things don't get repossessed. The word bills changed something in Mom's face before she forced another laugh. Listen to yourself, she said. What bills? You make it sound like we're drowning. We always find a way. You find a way, I answered, because someone has been catching you every time you fall. My voice was even. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my hands. After that, nobody slipped fully back into the easy rhythm they loved. People tried changing the subject. Jokes landed, but not quite right. I caught a cousin looking at me like he was replaying old memories in his head. Mom went back to her stories, but her eyes flicked toward me more often, as if she was trying to measure how far I was willing to go. When I stood to clear plates, Mom followed me into the kitchen. Away from the table, her voice dropped low. Whatever you're planning, she said quietly, don't forget who raised you, who took you in, who gave you everything you have. I set the dishes down and turned to face her. You gave me a home, I said. I will always be grateful for that. But you didn't give me everything. I've given you a lot too. More than you've ever admitted. Her jaw clenched. You're playing a dangerous game, Elena, she warned. Don't make a mistake you can't fix. I walked past her back, toward the hallway. I already did, I said. I let this go on for years. Later, when I stepped outside, the air felt significantly colder than when I'd arrived. On the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat. A photo appeared. Everyone around the table, arms linked, smiling at the camera, glasses raised. The caption read, Family over everything. I stared at my own face on the edge of the frame, half turned away, barely visible. They still believed it. They still believed the joke was on me. Tomorrow morning, when they woke up and saw my name in their inbox, they were finally going to learn what family over everything had really meant. One person paying the price while everybody else laughed. Tomorrow morning changes everything. You won't believe what happens when they open that email. Part 3 is coming next. For almost 3 years, my parents existed in my life like background noise there, but easy to tune out. A stiff, happy holidays email. The occasional forwarded chain message. A birthday text sent late with a generic, hope you're well, tacked on like an afterthought. I didn't respond to most of it. I was busy being someone else, someone I actually chose. Under the name Dr. Madison Cole, my days were incredibly full. The clinic was always packed. I was the person people came to when their own families said, "You're overreacting," and they needed someone to tell them they weren't crazy. At night, I wrote a blog that had started as a small, secret diary for strangers but kept growing. More comments, more shares, more private messages that all sounded like variations on the same sentence. I thought it was just me. Then one of my posts, The Ghost Child and the Golden Child, got picked up by a mid-sized online magazine focused on mental health and family dynamics. It was the most personal thing I'd written yet, a thinly veiled autopsy of my own childhood. They asked if they could republish it. I agreed on one condition. They used Dr. M, psychologist name changed for safety. No full name, no location, just the truth, scrubbed of identifying details, but not of impact. I hit send, closed my laptop, and went back to my life. For several days, nothing changed. Then the article went live. At lunch one afternoon, my phone started buzzing incessantly. Unknown number. I let it ring. It buzzed again. And again. Then a text appeared. "Madison, please. It's Mom. It's important." My stomach dropped in that old familiar way, the way it used to when I saw the school's number flash on the landline and knew I'd get in trouble for something my brother did. I stared at the screen until the call went to voicemail, then set the phone face down on my desk and finished my sandwich like nothing was happening. That night, I finally listened. In the first voicemail, my mother's voice sounded wrong. Not calm, not superior. Fractured. "Madison, if this is still your number, I think that article was about us," she said. "People are talking. Your father is furious. Your brother is losing clients, sponsors. They don't want to work with someone from a family that would do that to their daughter. Is that what you wanted? To punish us?" There it was. Not "we read it and realized how much we hurt you." Just "you're making us look bad." Has someone ever blamed you for telling the truth about them? Let me know in the comments. The second voicemail came a few hours later, her voice sharper, almost scolding. "This is our private business. I can't believe you would paint us as abusers on the internet. It was one misunderstanding, and now you're making us look like monsters. Take it down. Fix it." One misunderstanding. My chest actually ached at that. Years of missed events, of don't be dramatic, of choosing my brother's needs over mine, boiled down to one misunderstanding they believed I should quietly swallow. I played the messages for Ava the next day after our last session. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. "There it is," she said. "They didn't call because they suddenly saw you. They called because other people are finally seeing them." "Am I going too far?" I asked, hating the waver in my voice. Ava frowned. "You wrote about your experience. You didn't name them. You didn't fabricate anything. They built the house. You just turned the lights on. If they don't like what it looks like, that's not on you." I wanted to believe her. Part of me still heard my dad's voice, though. Families handle things privately. You don't embarrass us in front of other people. That sentence had been used to shut me up my entire life. Later that evening, alone on my couch, I opened my email. A new message sat at the top of my inbox. Subject line: Interview request, family estrangement story. A journalist who specialized in stories about toxic families, no-contact kids, and cultural expectations had read my article. They wanted to do a longer anonymous piece. "Your perspective as both a psychologist and someone who has walked away from their family is powerful," they wrote. "We think it could help a lot of people who are being told they're overreacting to neglect." While I read, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number from my hometown area code. Another voicemail. This one was shorter. My mother's voice was raw. "Please call me. We're desperate." Not "I miss you." Not "I'm sorry." Just "we're desperate." Desperate because my brother's Family Man brand was cracking after that leaked barbecue video. Desperate because the article gave people words for the kind of neglect they'd always brushed off as normal. Desperate because, for the first time, I wasn't the only one paying for their choices. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. My mind did what it always does, turn a situation into a therapy session I couldn't bill for. One voice in my head sounded like the child version of me, 17, sitting on the edge of her bed in a dress she bought herself for an award ceremony her parents left early. "If you pick up," she whispered, "they'll say you're too sensitive again. They'll say you misunderstood. You'll cry. They'll sigh. And nothing will change. Please don't put me back in that room." Another voice, newer and sharper, sounded like Ava. "You finally have leverage. Don't hand it back for free. Ask yourself who benefits if you make this easier for them." I shut my eyes and imagined the cafe from my hometown where we used to go after church. My younger self sat across from me in that mental picture, wearing my old hand-me-down jeans, knees bouncing, phone clutched in both hands. "They're still your parents," she said quietly. "And I'm still their daughter," I answered. "But when has that ever protected me?" She didn't have an answer. She just looked tired, the way I remembered feeling all the time back then. I opened my eyes. The empty apartment around me felt very far from that old house, that old version of me. I picked up my phone again. The screen glowed with my mother's last text. "We're desperate." "For what?" I said out loud. "For me? Or for damage control?" The silence answered for her. I didn't call back that night. Instead, I replied to the journalist. "An anonymous interview is fine," I typed, "but I won't be softening what happened to make anyone more comfortable." My finger hovered over send for a long second. Somewhere inside me, that teenage voice whispered, "Are you sure? This could make everything worse." Then another part of me, the woman who walked across the stage alone while her parents flipped burgers, answered, "It's already as bad as it can be with them. This might make it better for someone else." I hit send. Only then did I open a new text to my mother and type, "I got your messages. I'm not ready to talk. When I decide to, it will be on my terms, in public, where you can't rewrite what happened. Until then, you'll have to live with what you did, and with people finally seeing it." I didn't wait for a response. I muted the thread, put the phone face down, and let the quiet fill the room. Question for you. When someone only reaches out after your silence finally costs them money, status, and the mask they've worn for years, do they deserve your voice back? Or just the echo of their own choices? The confrontation is coming. Part 4 will show you what happened when I finally faced them. In the end, I did call back, but not to apologize. "If we talk," I told my mother firmly, "it has to be in public. A neutral place. No yelling, no pretending it was all a misunderstanding. You tell the truth, or there's nothing to say." She agreed instantly, which was almost suspicious. We picked a cafe halfway between my city and theirs, a crowded place with big windows and nowhere for anyone to hide. When I walked in, I spotted them immediately. Mom looked smaller than I remembered, lines etched deeper into her face. Dad looked exactly the same, just older, jaw clenched, arms crossed, anger hiding under a layer of forced calm. Mom stood like she wanted to hug me. I stopped just out of reach.
"Hi," I said.
"It's Dr. Cole now." Dad's eyes flickered.
He didn't like that.
We sat. There was this awkward dance of menus and coffee orders, like we were strangers on a terrible first date. As soon as the waiter left, Mom leaned in. "We're under attack," she began. "Ever since that article, people have been judging us. Your brother's sponsors are pulling out. Clients are avoiding him. Your father's position at the club is in question. This is hurting our whole family." I pulled my phone out, opened the family chat screenshot from my graduation day, and slid it across the table. My message: "Today I became Dr. Madison Carter. You chose burgers over being there. I won't forget that." Her reply: "We said we'd celebrate next week. Why are you making this about drama?" And beneath that, Dad's voice recording: "Don't be dramatic. It's just a ceremony." "You mean this?" I asked. "This is what I described. You're upset that people finally see it. Dad's mouth tightened. We made a mistake. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean you get to smear us online and destroy our lives. Interesting choice of words, I said. Because when you skipped my doctorate graduation, that wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice.
You didn't forget.
You prioritized convenience. I just wrote down what happened. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. You're twisting things.
We've always supported you.
We paid for your books, your rent. We were proud of you. You were proud in theory. I cut in. But when it came time to show up, you didn't. Not in high school, not in college, and not when it mattered most. Did you forget leaving early for my high school graduation to get to his practice game? Or skipping my scholarship reception because he needed the car? They went quiet. A couple at the next table glanced over, but I didn't lower my voice. Let them hear. For once, I wanted witnesses. We tried our best, Mom whispered. I laughed once, softly.
No.
You tried your best with him. With me, you did the bare minimum and called it parenting. And when I finally pointed out the pattern, you called me dramatic. Dad leaned forward, voice low but hard. We are not villains in your little revenge story. Families have problems, but you don't take them to the internet. That's betrayal. You want to talk about betrayal? I asked. You betrayed me every time you made it clear I was optional. All I did was stop keeping your secret. That's not betrayal. That's disclosure. When your family calls telling the truth betrayal, what does that tell you? Comment below. I pulled a printed copy of the article from my bag and tapped the pages. Do you know how many people wrote to me because of this? I said. People who went through the same thing. People who thought they were crazy because their families told them their pain was no big deal. You're not mad that I lied. You're mad that I told the truth where other people could hear it. Mom's tears finally spilled over. So, what do you want? You want us to grovel? You want us to admit we're awful parents? I met her gaze directly. I wanted you to show up when you didn't. I wanted you to own it, not spin it, not excuse it. Own it. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match we'd ever had. Dad broke it. You've made your point, he said stiffly. You've punished us. So now what? You come home. We move past this. You're our daughter. Question for you. If the people who broke you only admit they're hurting when their comfort is threatened, do they deserve to keep calling you family? There was a time when hearing, "You're our daughter," would have shattered me, would have set me running back just to be loved a little. Sitting in that cafe, I just felt tired. Not angry, not hysterical.
Just done.
No, I said finally. I'm not coming home. Mom recoiled like I'd slapped her. You can't mean that, she whispered. We're still your parents. Biologically? Yes, I replied. Emotionally? You fired yourselves a long time ago. I just finally accepted it. Dad scoffed. You changed a name on some papers, and now you think that erases blood? I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside were copies of my legal documents, court order, updated license, professional registration. I slid them across the table. This doesn't erase blood, I said. It erases entitlement. This is the name on my degrees, my clinic door, my writing. Madison Cole. That's who I am now. You don't get to use the old name to drag me back into a role that nearly killed me. Mom's hands trembled as she unfolded the papers. Tears blurred the ink. So that's it? She asked. You're erasing us from your life? I shook my head.
No.
I'm just refusing to let you keep erasing me from mine. I invited you into my milestones. Again and again you chose something else. I believed you. I finally adjusted my life to match what you showed me. Dad's voice rose. You're overreacting. Normal families have worse issues. You're blowing one event out of proportion. I cut him off. This isn't about one barbecue. It's about a lifetime of learning that I came second. Second to convenience. Second to schedules. Second to your golden child. My doctorate was just the moment I got proof. The day you confirmed that even at my highest, I still wasn't worth the drive. Mom reached across the table, grabbing my wrist. We can fix this, she begged. We'll apologize publicly, if that's what you want. Well, tell people we were wrong. Just don't throw away your family. I gently pulled my hand back. You can't fix rot with fresh paint. You have to tear out the damaged parts. For me, that means tearing myself out of the system where I'm only loved when it doesn't cost you anything. I stood up, the chair scraping softly. From now on, if anyone asks you about me, tell the truth. Tell them you had a daughter who became the first doctor in the family and you chose a barbecue over her graduation. Tell them you called her dramatic. Tell them you only reached out when her story started costing you money and status. Dad glared up at me, eyes fierce. You're going to regret this one day, he hissed. I looked at him and realized the spell was broken. His disapproval no longer felt like a death sentence. Maybe I will, I said. But I already regret every year I spent begging for scraps of love from people who couldn't bother to sit in a chair and clap. I'd rather regret walking away than regret never doing it. I picked my bag. Mom's voice cracked behind me, saying my old last name like a spell that used to work. It didn't anymore. I walked out of the cafe, out into the sunlight, and for the first time in my life, the word selfish didn't sting. It felt like self-defense. The final chapter reveals how I built my new life. Don't miss part 5. In the months that followed, the texts came in waves. Anger,
Guilt.
bargaining, nostalgia. Then, eventually, silence. Through relatives, I heard things. That my brother's reputation took a significant hit. That my parents complained about being slandered, but still never actually explained what they'd done. That's fine. My revenge was never about them admitting guilt. My revenge was simple. I took myself away. I built a life under a name they don't get to claim. My patients know me as the doctor who believes them. My friends know me as the woman who will show up because she knows what it's like when people don't. My chosen family knows I will never pick a barbecue over their milestones. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that empty seat at my graduation and the full chairs at my brother's party, and I feel something close to peace. Because I finally understand, blood is not a free pass to hurt someone without consequences. The real twist isn't that I changed my name. It's that I stopped believing family automatically meant home. When the people who share your blood treat you like you're optional, is staying to keep the peace an act of loyalty? Or is walking away the first real act of love you show yourself? Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying and fighting. Sometimes it's recognizing when a battle was never yours to win and walking away with your dignity intact. I'm Dr. Madison Cole now, not because I needed to erase who I was, but because I needed to become who I always should have been. My clinic is thriving. My blog reaches thousands of people every week. People who thought they were crazy for feeling hurt. People who were told they were too sensitive or making it about drama. People who needed permission to protect themselves. I give them that permission because nobody gave it to me. Last week, I received an email from a young woman, 23 years old, working her first real job, bleeding her savings dry to keep her family afloat while they mocked her for being poor. She asked me, "How did you find the courage to send that email? How did you know it was time?" I wrote back, "I didn't find courage. I found clarity. I realized that being the silent backbone was killing me more slowly than being the villain who told the truth ever could." She responded, "I'm scheduling my email right now." And that's when I knew. My story, our story, wasn't just about revenge or justice or proving a point. It was about breaking a cycle. About refusing to pass down the same poison we swallowed. My parents still don't understand. Maybe they never will. My brother still posts about family values online, carefully curating an image that omits the sister who no longer exists in his narrative. That's okay. I don't need them to understand. I don't need them to acknowledge what they took, what they ignored, what they destroyed. I just needed to stop pretending it didn't happen. What's the hardest truth you've ever had to tell? Drop it in the comments. And remember, your story matters. Your pain is valid. Your choice to protect yourself is not selfish. It's survival. Sometimes people ask me if I miss them, if I regret cutting contact, if I wish things had been different. And honestly, I miss the family I thought I had, the one I kept hoping they'd become. But I don't miss the reality, the constant disappointment, the casual cruelty disguised as jokes, the exhausting performance of pretending I wasn't slowly dying inside. I don't regret choosing myself. Not for a single second. And if you're reading this, sitting with your own draft email, your own list of receipts, your own breaking point approaching, I want you to know something. You are not being dramatic. You are not overreacting. You are not ungrateful. You are finally seeing clearly. And whatever you decide to do with that clarity, whether you send the email, schedule the meeting, or simply step back quietly, that choice is yours. Nobody else gets to tell you how to protect yourself from the people who hurt you, not even if they share your blood. Especially not if they share your blood. My name is Dr. Madison Cole. I'm 32 years old, and I am no longer broke, worthless, or invisible. I am free. And freedom, I've learned, is the best revenge of all. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories about reclaiming your power. And remember, you deserve to be more than someone's punchline. You deserve to be seen.